Started?
Let's start. So, welcome to the second free masterclass. And today it's the Essential Postdoc Starter Kit, an insider view.
Hi guys, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, so let's start. And let's start with the introduction. I'm Katia. I'm Katia Motinho, and I did my degree in biology in Portugal. After I did my master in molecular biology oncology, then I moved to Spain where I was a lab technician and I also did my PhD. And then I did two postdocs. I will focus on this because we are talking today about postdocs. So I did two, one in cancer epigenetics and the second one, it was in single cell technology. After that, I moved to Australia as a group leader. And in last September, we returned to Portugal. And right now, I'm scientific consultant in the single cell technology field. And I'm also co-founder of this platform, Advice for Life Scientists, together with Osama.
Hi guys, so my name is Osama. I'm a pharmacist by training. And I worked as one for a couple of years before deciding to quit and pursue a career as a scientist. So I did my master's in the States in neuroscience, and I did then my PhD in Switzerland in the same field. And most importantly, I did two postdocs, one in Switzerland and the other one with much more senior role as a team leader in Australia. And then I came back to Portugal to co-found the Advice for Life Scientists platform and also as a scientific consultant. So let's dive in.
Yeah. So today we will talk about some topics. So the most important things that we would love to know when we started our postdoc or while we were doing our postdoc. So when we look back, these are the things that we think are really important and we really wish to know about them. So, yeah.
So the first point actually, before starting a postdoc, whether you really need to do a postdoc or not, you need to answer this question before starting a postdoc. Why? We are focusing here not just the period of 6 months or even 1 year after you finish your PhD in order to wrap up the projects that you started during PhD. We're talking here mainly about a new experience of a postdoc for 3, 4, 5 or even 6 years in a new lab, or maybe even in the same lab but new project or stuff like that. So this is what we are focusing on. Do you really need or not? You need to sit with yourself before signing a contract or something to start a postdoc. Is that what interests you in doing a postdoc? Does it really align with your career goals? Do you have, for example, in 5 years from now, a vision that you want to continue in academia or to become a group leader yourself? Then maybe a postdoc is the way to go. But if in your career goals you decide to go to industry or to even other direction that doesn't need necessarily a postdoc, then maybe doing a postdoc is not the way to go. So it depends exactly what is your career goal in 3, 4, 5 years from now. However, there are people, and the majority of them, they don't have kind of career goals at that point, at that cross section after you finish your PhD, and they might not know what they want to do in 5, 6 years, like for example in the case of Katya.
Yeah. So I'm not a long-term plan person. So if you ask me back then or now, what are you planning to do in 5 years? I don't know. I cannot plan more than maybe, let's say, half a year. So yeah, when I need to decide about my first postdoc was, okay, I'm finished my PhD, and now let's do a postdoc. First, I didn't know that there were other options. Maybe you will not believe, but yes, I didn't know. And besides this, to be honest, I was happy doing research in epigenetics, cancer epigenetics, and I was happy in my lab, also in Barcelona. So because of that, I decided to stay there and I did my first postdoc. But of course, after some years, I was not learning, I was feeling that I was not learning anything else new, nothing new. So I decided to change the topic of research. And it was when I decided to choose a postdoc and to go for a postdoc in single cell technology. Was something different. It was a different group, but still in Barcelona because I like to be there. So yeah, choosing for me a postdoc was a little bit, okay, what do I want to do now? How does I feel now? What are the opportunities that I have, options? And yeah, I decide like this my postdoc. So there are not wrong and right, okay? It's just you need to think yourself, what do you want, how are you, and decide based on that. So yeah, other thing that is really really important is the type of leadership that you would like to have. So these come together with choosing the right advisor. So there are kind of leadership hands-on and hands-off. What does it mean? So hands-on is the type of advisor, supervisor that will be more giving you support, that will be more with you doing some experiments, for example, teaching you things. It will be more close to you. Hands-off is the type of advisor or leader that you will have, and it will be someone that will let you be independent. So do your thing, do your project, and you will meet maybe with him maybe once each 6 months. So you'll be more independent. So you need to really think what is better for you if you are going to do a postdoc on something that you already know all the techniques, so you are comfortable to be independent, or not, or it's completely different. So you need to think what will be better, what type of leadership you want, and what type of advisor, of course. Yeah.
So another important actually aspect in this point for choosing the right advisor, other than the leadership style itself that you would prefer, would be whether this advisor will be able to support your career goals or not. What do I mean by that? Mainly if you know that in 4, 5, 6 years after you finish your postdoc, you would like to end up being a faculty member, or being a teacher, or ending up in industry, or other roles. So whether this advisor is willing and happy to support developing your skills that are needed for the next move after you finish your period in the lab. And as long as you are giving your 100% in the lab, the advisor need to really respect your ideas and respect what you would like to do after you finish your postdoc. So, and how can you know if this advisor will be able to really support your career goals and the path that you decide to do after you finish your postdoc? It would be basically during the interview, you would ask the advisor if you already have something in mind and you would like to pursue this kind of direction after finishing your period in the lab, and whether they would be able to help you, and whether they have successes with previous lab members that, for example, I helped other alumni from the lab to open their own labs, for example, and to start their own groups, or I helped them to end up in industry or to become teachers at the university or something like this. So just by knowing the successes of your advisor helping other members in the lab, and by discussing this with the advisor before really starting in the lab, you would have a better idea whether this advisor will be able to really support your career goals, no matter these goals are or not. And this is very important in order to really work on developing these skills that you will need throughout the period of your postdoc and then later on.
Yeah. Other thing that is also important is for you to see how often and where they publish so their work. Why? Because if you see that they publish each 5 years, let's say, you know automatically that you will do a postdoc, a long postdoc of minimum 5 years. Also, where they publish is important. Why? Because if you are expecting to publish high science, nature, and if this group or this advisor never published there, so there is a chance for you to be able to do it. So it's a little bit always about what you will like for you. What is your goal? It doesn't need to be a 5 years goal, but what is the current goal that you want to achieve? So yeah, that is. Also, other thing is the financial support. So depending on the country, the lab, the institute, there are, I will say, 3 options. The option where the lab or your advisor, future advisor, doesn't have money, basically. So normally this job, postdoc positions, is I offer you a postdoc position, but you need to bring your funding. You need to apply to grants, to fellowships, and bring your own salary, basically. In the other extreme are the labs where there are a lot of money. So normally these labs offer you a contract, okay, and yeah, long, maybe 2 years to 5 years contract. And of course, it will be amazing if you can get your grant, your fellowship, your funding, because this is also important for your CV. But you are not pressured to do that, okay? You will keep your salary if you don't get any grant, any project. And then in the middle is a little bit a mix. So our labs that they have some money, they can pay you 2 years or 1 year, for example, salary, but then they ask you, okay, you need to get your funding, your own grants. So start applying. So you need to think about what you will like. I know that most part of the people, they will like the second option, like a contract for 5 years. But yeah, it always depends a little bit about where do you want to do your postdoc, the lab, but also the city, the country. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. So also in choosing the right advisor for your postdoc period, one of the important aspects that you need to consider and to be aware of is whether this advisor is in their early career, like for example, a tenure track assistant professor, or they are already well established and they are tenured. There's no problem whatsoever joining this style or that style of advisor. However, you need just to be aware that, for example, a tenure track advisor in their early career, they might lack a little bit of experience. They are not as well established as a tenured professor. However, one of the perks is that you will have more time interacting with this advisor. You can work with them closely, much more than a busier, tenured, more established advisor. The more established advisor, one of the advantages would be that they have more funding, more stability, more expertise. They might support you more in terms of resources and material, much more than really working with you closely, because probably they are more busy and you will not be able to have this kind of one-to-one encounter on regular basis like a tenure track. One also of the cons, for example, for a tenure track assistant professor is that they would like to really publish as fast as possible in order to build their own name. So you need to keep this in your mind. You would like also to build your own name as well as the tenure track advisor as well. So nothing is wrong with joining either a tenure track advisor or already well-established tenured advisor, but you need to be aware of these tiny points, right? So the final point actually in choosing the right advisor would be basically is the project that you will be leading in the lab. Whether it's going to be lab designed or it's going to be designed by you. Sometimes they hire certain labs, they hire a specific postdoc and they already have the outline and everything outlined for a project and they give it to you and you need to work on it. That doesn't mean automatically that you would be deprived from the fact that you would work your own ideas or really push it forward in another direction, whatever you imagine. But you will have kind of maybe less flexibility or freedom compared to another position that you might be offered, is that we like you, we like your expertise and background, we hire you and you can start whatever project that you would like from scratch. So you might really prefer going to a lab where you start from scratch rather than it is lab designed. You just need to be aware what would be the style of the project that you will be leading in the lab. Is it already outlined and you need to work exactly within these outlines, or you can start it from scratch completely? So this mainly are the aspects for choosing the right advisor, but then there is a very important point that we need to talk about, which is the advisor himself or herself are not working alone. They are working in a lab. They are leaders for the group. So the rest of the group and the lab environment is very important for you when you are choosing the lab. Even if the chemistry between you and the advisor is really working well and the advisor seems to be extra super double terrific in terms of support and finances and everything, you need really to see the lab members, because you are spending way more time with the lab members than at family, at home with your family. So one of the aspects that you need to take care of and you focus on in the lab environment is the size of the group itself. Is it a small size where you have like 5 members or less? or it is a big one where you have like 10 members or even more. There's no problem joining either or. But of course, there are pros and cons. A smaller group, you might not find a lot of expertise. You might need help from outside of the lab in order to do brainstorming for science ideas, to bounce off ideas on other members. But in a larger group, it is expected that you have more expertise and more experience in the lab, and the discussion, the scientific discussion, much more would be more enriching in this case. The resources that are supported by a bigger lab, of course, it is expected to be higher than a smaller lab. However, the support in terms of socialization and working with each other in close contact would be more for a smaller group. So you might have the chance to really work with your advisor much more because you are a very small group, and you would have more responsibilities and you work together with it. So just keep in mind, is it a bigger group where you are 20 people and you might end up actually being very busy and in the end they are not very helpful, or a smaller group? So it's just the size, a very big lab or a small one.
Yeah, besides the size, the environment, that is really also very, very important, and you need to get a feeling how is the environment inside the lab. So normally when you apply to a postdoc position, there are normally 2 interviews. The first one with PI or supervisor or a senior lab member. And then there is the second part that you are invited to go and present your work, what you did in your PhD, for example, and also to talk with your possible future colleagues. When you do that, you can always ask them if they do things together, how it works, for example, ordering reagents, everyone is doing it, there is only a response. So you have to have a feeling, do polite questions, of course, to have a feeling how is the behavior of the group, the environment. Also something very important, if they have life outside the lab. So
if they have a life.
So yeah, you have to get well, unless you want to work 24 hours, because there are people that they are okay. So there are people that their like priority is work and they don't mind. But if you want to have like a balance between work and life, just ask them, again, polite questions, ask them what they do, like the hobbies, if they can enjoy the weekend, what they do in the weekends, if it's okay to take some time off. So that will give you the vibes of the lab, and you will see if you are compatible. Because again, if your priority is work and you don't mind to work all days, it's okay. As we said, as Osama said before, there is not right or wrong. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Other thing that you should do also is to see where are the previous postdocs from the lab. So you should contact them to do Twitter or LinkedIn to do networking. That is really important, because this is people that were in the lab and they are in the same area of expertise. So it will be great if they are part of your network. Okay, you can contact them, and you can also ask them about their feedback about when they were in the lab, about the advisor, for example, and also see what positions, what jobs they have now. If they are in the industry, if they are group leaders, if they are doing a second postdoc. So to have a little bit an idea what you can get from your postdoc and from the group and advisor that you will choose. So yeah, these are really important things.
Also the length of the
yes.
postdoc period as well, right?
Yeah, also the length is really important. Ask how long it takes to do a postdoc, because if you want a short do a short postdoc, and suddenly you find out after you've been in the lab that normally people take 6 years, yeah, you will have a problem maybe. Yeah. So maybe it's not the best option for you. So yeah, that is really important also.
So there are actually other points other than, of course, choosing the right advisor and the group itself where you will end up working with, related to, for example, the institute where the group is located, or the university where this research environment is located. For example, which country, in which city are you okay being in this city, working, for example, in this environment, and at the same time the support that is given by the institute itself in terms of facilities and the support that is giving to the postdocs, if they have postdoc associations where they understand the challenges of a postdocs and everything. So all these kind of things related to the institute where the lab or the group is located, and in a bigger picture, where in which country and in which city specifically, and whether it's okay for you to live in this country or in this city or not. These are very important, but we will not discuss this in details for the sake of time. The final point that we would be talking about is that how to be ready.
This is the big question. How to be ready for a postdoc.
Exactly. So to be ready, again, we think that it is better really to have an idea what you would like to do during the postdoc in order to prepare you for the next move. And we think that there is a successful plan, and this successful plan, no matter what you want to do after your postdoc, whether to continue in academia or to really do something else, not even related to science, but there are kind of a specific plan where you focus on certain skills. If you really work on these skills, trying to develop these skills throughout your postdoc period, it is subjective when exactly you work on these skills, but if you collectively target these skills, you will succeed no matter what in whatever next move you decide to do after your postdoc. And these kind of skills are the scientific skills, of course, becoming as a scientist in order, if you would like to become a group leader afterwards. Essentially, you are a scientist. You started as a scientist, so you need always to develop, for example, certain techniques that you didn't learn before during your PhD. You work on it during your postdoc and stuff like that. So the scientific skills are very important, specifically if you're going to continue in academia or even in industry afterwards. Of course, it is expected the verbal communication in order to do proposals and do presentations and conferences, posters. All these things are important for a postdoc and also for a scientist in general. Written communication is very important, specifically if you'd like to continue in academia, where you would like to find your own fellowship and funding to start your own group. So this you would need to work on. We think that in mid-career and late career, it's very important to focus on developing these skills in order really, because you're approaching the second part of your period as a postdoc, and you start really to hone on and improve your writing skills to be able to get these funding in order to open your own group. If you'd like to be a teacher and a mentor afterwards, you need to work on these kind of soft skills where you have a lot of students and you supervise them as well afterwards to become a teacher or to become a supervisor. Leadership skills are very important because as postdoc you will be working with people, and these people, the majority would be maybe students, master students, PhD students, or even technicians, and you are leading your project, so this you need to develop throughout your career itself. And finally, during the last period of your postdoc, you would like to start the job search and what's out there for you for the next step, whether is it academia or industry or something else. So we think that having this plan or focusing on these kind of skills and try to develop them will really help you succeed and get the most of the experience itself as a postdoc.
Yeah. Also, one of the key questions that you can do during the interview is to your supervisor or possible supervisor, what does he expect from you? So like this you will have like a better idea what skills you already have and what skills you need to develop more. And because normally no one tells, but they expect us to be leaders, to be leading the projects, to be supervising staff, PhD students, to publish super fast, also to get funding. So all these things they expect from us when we are accepting to be a postdoc in their lab, but I think no one really tells you. You find in the wrong way. So think about again what skills you need to develop. And to like summarize this masterclass, the most important question is, do you really need to do a postdoc for what you want to do in the future? This is the first question. Don't go with the flow. I went with the flow. Everyone was doing a postdoc.
But again, there's no problem of starting, like in your case, there's no problem of starting if you don't know really and you are postponing answering what you want to do maybe in the beginning, but then you are just postponing the question, but you need maybe within the first year or the second year of postdoc to decide, I continue in science or in academia to have my own group or to do something else. You need to know.
then try to choose the right advisor. Again, maybe it will seem to you the right one, and you start in the lab working as a postdoc, but suddenly you think, okay, no, this is not what I expect. And you can always change lab. It's difficult, but you should do it. Okay.
But honestly, I think changing as a postdoc from one lab to another or something like this, it's way easier than a PhD student, because a PhD student is all or none. So I think it is not very dramatic really leaving a group and going to another group if you have another offer elsewhere.
Yeah, yes. The lab environment is also really, really important, because you will need, in research there is a lot of failure, the things that doesn't work as we want. So you will need the support of your colleagues, of friends. So the environment of the lab is really, really important. Okay. I will say that is what makes the difference, to be honest. And then have a successful plan, and here comes the skills. So be conscious of the skills that you have already developed that are okay, and the ones that you need to work in. So all of us, we have things to improve, new skills. And so if you have, thank you so much for being there, okay, first of all. And then if you have some questions, just contact us by our email or social networks, or even through the chat. So you can write some questions and we will be happy to answer.
Thank you guys for stopping by. Just shout out if you have any questions. Follow us on these social networks, and we'll be happy really to communicate more.